So I'm very fortunate to be joined here by four guests who are part of the middle school learning pilot at Collins Middle School, and we're going to start with our first guest, who is a student.
My name is April Chakudis. I'm an 8th grader in Pilot.
My name is Jaylin and I'm an 8th grader in Pilot.
My name is Chelsea Banks. I'm the Dean of Innovation, and I have the honor to lead the pilot.
My name is Leonard, and I'm the Program Director at WPS Institute, the nonprofit design partner for the pilot.
So we're going to start asking a question to Ms. Banks. I've heard a lot about this middle school learning pilot that is just launched this school year at Collins. Can you tell me what it is, what it's about, and what people in the public should know about the pilot?
Yeah, in the big picture, Steve, it's an opportunity for our current middle school students to help us reimagine what middle school can be. So together with the educators that we have and their parents and families, we've been able to think about how to create more connection and relevance in their learning and help get them excited to be in middle school. In the details, it's 2 homerooms of about 43 students who did a lottery process over the summer to join us, and the demographics of our students match the demographics of the 8th graders overall. So 43 students, 2 full-time teachers, 4 staff total within Collins Middle School.
So we want to hear from students in their own words about what the experience has been like. So both of you are 8th graders, and I love that we have real life students on the show here. And so I'd love for you to, we'll start with you, April. Can you tell me a little bit about what makes the pilot similar or different from the rest of your middle school experience now that you're in your last year of middle school?
So the pilot has a lot of field trips. Like every single week we go to one. Normal classes, that's not really what they do. Pilot also makes time for every student. The normal classes I've been in before don't do that. Pilot also accepts everyone for who they are. They're kind to everyone. It's like a big family.
Mm-hmm. It's great. I love that idea that you operate as a big family of 43 students. So Jaylin, tell me a little bit about your experience in the pilot. How is it the same, or how is it different from what you experienced in middle school before?
Well, I think it's different from being in normal classes because we get to go on field trips every week, and it's more educational and hands-on than other classrooms.
The pilot's a cool thing to do because they give us opportunities that the rest of the school doesn't get. And when we go to studio, we get to do more hands-on learning and actually build stuff. I get excited because when Miss Banks says that we'll remake our project, that one time we had to remake that thing. We had a slideshow we could pick from the rat bottle thing. Mm-hmm. When we did that was cool because I liked it. We could pick our own thing, and they had materials on a table where we could pick our own materials and make it on our own, a new creation of it, but our own design.
I get excited about pilot when we always get greeted, how the teachers are always nice to us. They actually listen.
What excites you about the learning?
What excites me is how it's more hands-on, how they actually listen to how you want to learn things, and how they actually help you when you need it. The pilot listens to you. They listen to everything that you want to say, everything you want to do. They tell you some things that you're going to learn, and then they give you options on how you want to learn it.
And tell me about the learning that happens on these trips that you have.
We went to the aquarium and we did see, think, wonder things, and we would write down certain things that we would wonder about, how many, I don't know, fish are in the tank or something. And then we did
Okay. You're okay. April, do you remember anything else we did on the field trip?
I mean, we got to see the animals.
Yeah.
Oh, and then we watched a movie too.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun. It wasn't just a movie about anything. It was a movie about the fish and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So April, tell me a little bit about what you like most about the pilot, your experience so far.
What I like most is how the students and the teachers treat each other. It's not a toxic environment. Most classes are, but in the pilot, you actually get heard out, and everyone enjoys your company. You get treated just like your family.
Excellent. Great. So Ms. Banks, hearing from the students makes me a little curious to learn more about the goals of the pilot. They talked a lot about what was special about the experience or different for them. What are the outcomes that you're looking for?
One of the basic outcomes that we're looking for, or the start of what started this, is helping them love school again. So not only are they middle schoolers, which has been hard for everybody who goes through the middle school experience at different times, they've also been through COVID. They have social media, and the mental health status of our middle schoolers was really something that was concerning us as a district. And so part of the fundamental goal for this was just to help them love school and want to come to school and be there. It's a prerequisite for learning. We've also focused on having them feel more connected to their communities and to each other, to help the learning feel more relevant, so they're going places and seeing the learning in action and bringing that back into their classroom. And then we are looking for growth. We're looking for growth academically, socially, emotionally, and just as they're getting ready for high school.
And how do you get student buy-in? I mean, you just mentioned that like middle school is not a time that generally students say, I love school, I love middle school, right? It's a time for, a lot is happening in the lives of middle schoolers, right? So school isn't always like the most favorite place. So how have you been able to get the buy-in from students that we just heard from, they're describing that they really are enjoying and are engaged with their middle school experience?
Yeah, it's been a process. I wouldn't say it was overnight, but I think part of what's been most important is for them to see what we've been talking about. So for them to be able to go to Salem State in the fall and present their civics projects about the election. They brought the posters, they presented to college students and professors, and could see that this piece that we were talking about of why they're doing their work was coming to life in front of them. So that increased the buy-in a lot as they got to see kind of their work product come to life. They produced learning games for their buddies at one of our elementary schools. So they got to bring them learning games so they can see the why behind a lot of their learning more. And it's also been able to say that part of the high expectations we have for them in middle school and being able to take them places and do these things is to be able to walk on the floor of the House of Representatives with our own Representative Cruz, who's a graduate of our middle school, and to see that connection in their learning. And so the buy-in to the whole thing has been a process, but as they've seen it come to life, it has gone up and up. And then I think the other piece is that they do appreciate this chance to be in a space where they feel seen and feel part of something. And so even though it's not every day all the time, overall I think they appreciate that chance to be part of something.
So to that end, about building the sense of community and family that April was describing in the pilot amongst the students, what intentional steps were taken so that you have this positive learning community where students can really learn and accelerate their learning because there's a sense of connection and belonging?
Yeah, I mean, I really love what April said about family too, because I think it starts with the intentional partnership with families and saying you were very critical as parents and caregivers to the learning process. And so all throughout, Ms. Banks and our wonderful teachers have been in communication with families. This is what's going on. We'd love to hear your feedback on this. We want to get to know your learner. What do we need to know to be able to serve them better? And so I think that's been a key piece. But I think some of the classroom level steps have been around creating intentional time and space for adults to get to know students, for students to get to know each other. Some of that is through the structure of the day. There's team time. There's intentional grouping. So each student in the pilot gets to know all the other 43 students. You're never going to be working with just the same people. And I think just the fact that there are 4 adults in a self-contained area who know every single student, who are building personal relationships and able to say, hey, how's your day going? I see you. That feeling of being seen, I think, really contributes to a sense of belonging overall.
Great.
Steve, if I can add, the other thing that we were talking about that I forgot to mention is about their voice. And so part of this process has been, let's try something and get their feedback. And so part of what they've been telling us in that feedback is that being heard of saying something worked or didn't work matters to them.
Yep.
They're 13 and 14 years old. It's empowering to them to be able to give input and see it come to life. And so I think that that's part of their buy-in. It's also part of how we've built that connection, is that they feel like what they say matters. We don't take every suggestion. Not everything gets put into life, but we, especially early on, as we started to design things, they gave answers to what we were going to do, and we did it together.
Yeah, that's that idea that middle schoolers have agency in their own experience is not something that we see in have seen in traditional American schooling. I do want to ask to go back to the students. You know, obviously you're getting, believe it or not, you're getting close to high school, right? So that can be exciting, maybe a little scary, I don't know. How do you think being part of the pilot is preparing you for high school?
The pilot does a lot of things to get us used to it.
Mhm.
They let us talk to high schoolers. They let us see what they do. They let us go to their school. They let us do a lot of things. Honestly, the pilot shows us that school isn't just a boring thing. It shows us that it's enjoyable, it's useful, and how it's important.
Same question to you, Jaylin. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel like you're being prepared for high school?
I mean, like, I think it's like helpful for us to like get ready for high school because like it helps.
When they take us on the trips, it teaches us about like real world problems and stuff, like when they talk about the government and stuff like that, like they teach us about that earlier than what I think like most kids learn about, and like it helps us like grow as a person.
When I was in like 4th grade, I used to like love reading, but then like people around me would like say stuff about it, so then I stopped. But when I came to the pilot, they like showed me that I like shouldn't let people stop me from like doing what I love.
And what is it that you love about reading? And what do you love to read? I'm curious.
I like to read fiction because like it could be like about anything. They could just like make something up and it's like cool, I guess.
Great. So we'll go back to Chelsea. If you could talk a little bit about, obviously we're learning a lot through this experience, or you're learning a lot about middle school education, what works, what doesn't work. You're getting a lot of input from students. What do you think you've taken from the experience that should inform how we design middle school learning across the board, 6th, 7th, 8th grade at both Collins and Saltonstall, which are our 2 middle schools in Salem?
2 of the things we've already heard about, one is the agency and voice, and the other is connection. So how do you create spaces and environments where those are going to happen? The agency and voice also goes into one of our big learnings has been how do you build muscles for reflection and learning as you go? And so instead of sort of like setting a course from the beginning of the year and going towards it, students feel the changes that are being put in place. So how do we build a learning organization? I think Dr. Zrike, you've talked about that as a district, and how do we do that at the middle school? I do think we think small matters. Small doesn't have to be like the size of the school, but the size of the relationships. So how do you build in spaces or ways that the kids feel that tightness of community, whether that's in pairing homerooms or in the relationship between some of the administrators or other support staff in the building being close, and how we go through that learning. I think the other piece is just the belief in what middle schoolers are capable of. They are amazing. That shows up in different ways every day. And so holding that belief and helping them to see how that can come to life, and making spaces for that to come to life in different ways. So we've seen kids come out of their shells in different places that we wouldn't necessarily have known at the beginning of the year that they were going to be the one that blossomed in that experience, but giving that exposure to lots of different things has allowed a lot of them to find their place or what brings them to life.
I think that creating the space and intentionality around really finding out what your passion is and figuring out what is it that makes you tick is a huge piece of the pilot. And so I think for middle schools to really drill down into helping kids develop their interests so that when they're going to high school, they have a sense of, this might be a direction that I want to pursue. I have a lot of options, whether it's jobs or maybe internships, but middle school is a great time for them to actually figure out, what do I care about? What kind of change do I want to make in the world? And so I think the pilot has really focused on giving kids the time and space to develop that sense of self.
Yeah, and I appreciate hearing this. What Jaylin talked a lot about is, the idea that, learning can also be something cool. It's something, it can be something that, that reading and finding your passion around reading, solving real world problems, experience the real world outside of the walls of school, and seeing the relevancy around a future profession, where you plan to go next, academic and then in life. That's really important. And this idea of creating a culture of like achievement and excellence around learning is really important. My understanding is that there are a number of partners who are involved in the pilot experience. Can you talk about how you're leveraging partners?
None of this would be possible without WPS helping us from the start to design and make this real. So Anna and her team mates, Laura and Eric, who are part of the pilot community, they come in, they're on the ground partners, which has been amazing, and really thoughtful design partners. So what's working, what's not, and how do we change it? And then we have made thoughtful connections to community resources. So we do have a graduate student who's doing her internship with us. So we're able to do lunch groups and have like small group conversations with that. We are working with Project Adventure and Fly Kids Dance, which are experiences that students enjoy having in middle school that they get to choose into to have both more like engaging and relevant opportunities for dance like they like. And Project Adventure is a lot about team building. So we've actually got some supports helping us build this community and working through problem solving together. And then we've got wonderful partners like Carlton Elementary School, where we've been going back to with our partnerships, and Salem State University, especially the Center for Civic Engagement, has been really warm and welcoming for our students, and we've been able to go multiple times. So we've got Peabody Essex, Salem State, community resources that are really coming together to build an experience for our students that's meaningful.
And I'll just add on that to say that a lot of partners in the community have said we want to work more with middle school, and we're not sure how to engage or how we can deepen that interaction beyond just a one-off field trip. Yeah. So it's been really exciting to help open up and expand opportunities for community partners to actually engage more with the middle school students in Salem.
And we've had the most success with that. So when we've been able to go back to the same places and build those relationships, we've had some really fun trips to the aquarium or the Museum of Science, or days that have been fun and engaging days where they get to apply learning in the field. But those meaningful, those continued relationships have really been one of our biggest lessons this year that we'll look to keep going next year and expand.
So the question I would have is, where does the pilot go from here? And then how do people learn more about this experience, which I think has made a tremendous impact on the students who have been a part of it?
Yeah, so the purpose of this has been from the beginning to learn on behalf of all the middle schoolers. So this has been jumping in with both feet into a full-time experience, but it's also been how do we then share that learning? And so for next year, we do have the opportunity to run it again. So we will be 2 8th grades again, but we are adding 2 7th grades as we think about the middle school experience. We don't just have 8th graders, and they are very different every year. So we'll be twice the size, same number of kids at each grade, but 7th and 8th grade within Collins Middle School again. And then we'll go through the whole process of kind of all in testing and learning and getting students' feedback as we go. There's also some things we think we've learned. And so we're already working with school leadership to be thinking about what are some of the experiences that the students in the pilot had that all students can have in moments in time or spaces throughout the year. So thinking about in 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade, what are some key learnings that we've had that can be applied to all of those. So we talked about some of the career exposure, or trying to figure out what are my interests, going from I don't know to I have answers to what are you interested in is a big piece of middle school. And so how do we bring some of those experiences to the 6th and 7th and 8th graders? Some of the best field trips we've gone on will hopefully be things that everybody can go on next year. As we've learned some of the field trips we might not do again. And so that's part of the pilot experience, is learning and figuring out what's been most impactful for students. And then trying to figure out with the school administration, how does that fit into the whole experience? And so we'll run the pilot again next year. We'll take some of the pieces that we've had that we feel like we are learning from and have all students have some of those experiences. And then we'll keep learning and going and keep listening to our kids in that process.
Do you think that this is a model that could be scaled up across the school, or is this just something that has to be kept small in a cluster or a small group of classrooms?
I mean, I'll just say, as a design partner, and so I'm coming from the perspective of the education nonprofit world, who is really just interested in supporting innovative leaders like yourself. I think that anything is on the table, and I think that if you have the willingness to experiment and try and figure out what works best for your community, it's definitely possible. It does take creativity, and that's why from WPS's standpoint, we're really grateful for everyone in Salem, from the district to the school committee to the mayor, being behind this kind of program, because it's not something that you can do just as a one-off. It definitely has to be a whole community effort.
Yeah.
And I definitely think the goal is to make it so that what we learn from this is for everyone. We don't necessarily know exactly what that will look like, but the goal is to make everybody love middle school, as hard as that might be. We have asked questions like, what is is there a cap on how many kids are going to love middle school? But how do we make them excited to come to school every day? And so I think that's for everybody.
Why are you excited to be in school this year?
Pilot changed all of that. Pilot actually got us a therapist and stuff. So they let us know that we're heard and everything. It's like one big family, and it's just honestly making me like school a lot more.
Yeah, it's like a lot better than like all the other schools I went to because they like didn't do what the pilot does. Like recently, one of my teachers like made me something separate to write my work on because I prefer to do it that way, and like my other schools would have just told me to do it the same way the other kids are. So it's like more welcoming than other schools.
I'm going to ask you guys another question as we begin to close. But like, I'd like to know what you've learned. What have you learned about yourself this year as part of the pilot? What have you learned about yourself as a student as part of the pilot? So April, I'll ask you.
About myself as a student, I learned that I don't need to not like school to be there. But for pilot, I mean, they teach me that school is good, useful, it's better. That's basically it.
Mm-hmm.
They taught me that like it doesn't matter like the situation that you're in, you could like always like accomplish anything that you put your mind to.
Mm-hmm. I love that, right, that it doesn't matter what you're presented with, that you have the skills and the ability to accomplish so much. And I think, ultimately what we've heard this over and over, but, or we've heard people discuss this, but the importance of just being able to tap into your interests, your passions, that's really where we see the purpose of school. It's important that students be prepared to be able to express themselves in writing, speaking, have the skill set to be able to perform at grade level or beyond. That can happen with excitement and enthusiasm about school, right? And there's so much out there for learning. We're fortunate to live in a place like Salem, in the North Shore, near a world-class city like Boston. There's so much to be learned in our community as well. And learning doesn't always happen in the walls of a classroom, right? Learning can happen in downtown Salem. It can happen taking a trip to another part of the North Shore. And it certainly happens when people feel connected and work together, and there's the opportunity to design and collaborate together. When you're invested in a project that you can design something on your own, you like you said, if there's a problem that's presented to you and you can roll up your sleeves, especially with other people, that's what we all have to do in our place of work. Anybody that's in any place of work, right? There are problems that you face all the time, and your ability to be able to tackle those problems and address those problems in collaboration with others is the essence of what makes people, I think, effective in their place of work. We're very excited, I know, about the pilot, and really appreciate the time that all of you have given to be here and share your impressions. Thank you to our students after a long day at school, right, for being here, and for your parents allowing you to be on the show. Thank you to Ms. Banks and Ms. Leonard for your time as well, and offering your insights. And we encourage, again, Ms. Banks, where should people go if they want more information about
We're going to be updating the website, so you'll be able to learn more about next year coming soon. And you can always reach out to the Collins Middle School or to the district and get more information through that. But the process of how to become more involved will be right there on our website.
Great. Well, thank you all very much. Really appreciate hearing your perspective about your experiences learning in our schools. We look forward to seeing you next time on the show, where we'll be talking about something else that's exciting in the Salem Public Schools.